So I think the Decan conversation is kind of cool. Because basically what it does is it does what a lot of us like, and it takes away just that sun sign obsession, and it breaks that down. It can break that sun sign down. So a lot of times you'll read a description about a sign and you'll be like, that's me, that's not me, that's not me. Well, we know we can't just go off the sun sign, but a lot of times they're bucketing all the decans together, the first, second, and third of that Leo sign, and that it's just dumped, and it makes sense because we all have to start somewhere. It's dumping all that information in one page, when really that might be the trait of a third decan Leo. That might be a trait of a second decan Leo, right? And so what it does is it helps you see why you're different from your sister who's the same sign as you, why your partner is the same sign as you, but you're like, we're very different. There's obviously, we have to look at your birth chart for that. But the decans are broken into 3. So for example, for those of you who are not familiar, Aries, all Aries are ruled by Mars. But the first decan Aries, and again, we can do it by date. I will go through every single sign. But date, that means March 21st to March 31st, those Aries are ruled by Mars and sub-ruled by Mars. Gives an extra layer. The second decan Aries, April 1st to April 10th. Mars rules Aries, sub-ruled by the sun. And the last decan, the last part, right, the last dates of Aries season is Jupiter rule. It adds a different layer. Now again, when someone is doing their chart, they should now pay attention to that planet. If you are sub-ruled by Jupiter and you're in Aries, you have to pay a little bit more attention to Jupiter than someone else, perhaps, okay? That is how I look at it when we're looking at decans here. We're looking at the connections of, this now means there's a layer over your Aries sun or your Virgo sun. It's a layer. So you're not just in this bucket with all the Virgos and all the Libras, right? So for example, or now with degrees, you can look at decans 2 different ways. The easiest way is just look at it by the date. For those of you who don't want to get into degrees, don't worry about that. Just use the date. All right, July 23rd to August 1st is the first decan of Leo. That's where I would start if you're learning it. Do not worry about degrees. You don't have to do that yet at all until you are ready to. You can totally understand astrology. You can totally be accurate without degrees. Just add a precision, the finite precision. It adds that extra thing, which can be important for some people because there are critical degrees and things of nature. But what I mean is, for example, in books or in texts, online, you're going to see sometimes it's going to say that I'm going to tell you the 2 ways and I'm going to tell you what I do. Because again, that's what I do. I tell people this is the information. This is what I do in my practice. All right. That way you can know if you're doing it your way, cool. I'm going to keep doing it the way I do it. I don't need, I know what I already feel. I already know what I think. When I do need new information, I go seek it. I don't wait for somebody to tell me anything. So you do what you need to do, but I'm going to tell you what I do. 0 to 10 is the first decan of any sign. Some books are going to say that. Then it's going to say 11 to 20 is a second decan. So if your degree is 12 degrees, you're a second decan of whatever your sign is. Right? So that's 11 to 20. And then 21 to 30, some of them will say, is the third decan. So if you were a 25th degree Virgo, you are a third decan Virgo. Now again, I will break down what the decans are in this video. However, other books and other sites say this. This is what I use because it's easier in my readings. 0 to 9 is the first decan. Okay? Because 0 is considered a number when we do this. 0 to 9. 10 to 19 is the second decan. And 20 to 29 is the third decan. That way is aligned to when you do pull up a chart, you're not going to see someone their sun is at the 30th degree. You see their 29th degree. So when you do charts, you don't actually see the 30 there, right? So that's where I'm saying the discrepancy. To me, it's not that big of a deal. As long as you know what a decan's dates are, you can kind of finagle that. You get what I'm saying? I don't think anyone needs to get caught up in that. This video is not about that. It's not about degrees. I will mention the degrees, but I hope through the video you really just come up with an understanding of the decans better. Again, just for all intents and purposes, this does get deep when we talk about degrees in certain ways. Please do not drop your degree down there and ask me to interpret anything for you because, again, the integrity of my work requires me to do it in a focused, controlled environment where I'm literally analyzed and serviced out to pay attention to your chart. I will answer general questions. You can tell me your experience, and I'll definitely correspond with you guys. And most of you know this, but I do have a lot of new folks that come to my channel, and I have people requesting stuff, dropping 15 things and asking me, what does this mean? I don't even know if you're a supporter of the channel. That's all I'm gonna say, right? Like, supporters are the people that follow me on Instagram as well, people who comment even when they don't have a question, people who like the videos, people who engage, people who support the work that I do and give nice encouragement, because it's not easy. You know, content creating can get difficult with schedule and you know, I have to break things down that I know in a way that helps other people. So one thing I want to say as well before I jump into this is that this is why we go deep, because yes, you can be more compatible with someone simply because of their Decan sign, perhaps, right? So you could be a person, if you're saying like, I don't like those signs, I don't like that sign, but I like that person. And maybe you are you're a Leo, right? And you know, they're Sagittarius, born December 20th, and their sub-ruler planet is the sun, and so they embody some of that Leo energy. Now, simply having the same sign as someone does not mean you're always going to like them, or having a similar energy doesn't mean you're going to like them, but you recognize each other a lot more easily. And so there is where sometimes we will not like certain things about people or certain signs, but at the end of the day, we can see where that connection actually is. You know, you could definitely maybe even have a Virgo who relates more to the first Decan Gemini person. Maybe they vibe well because that Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and then it's sub-ruled by Mercury as well. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And maybe that Virgo is the first Decan Virgo, right? And they're ruled by Mercury double too. And so them and that Gemini, and that Gemini just became a Gemini. Here's what I mean. So if you're born May 21st, well, the day before that was Taurus. So you're at that 0 degree. And let's say you already have Mercury in Taurus or something like that, right? That's an earth sign. And so Gemini's ruled by Mercury and Virgo's ruled by Mercury. So that Virgo could relate well, and that Gemini could relate really well with that Virgo, and vice versa, because of that Decan energy. And so that's what I want us to understand. Astrology is not just, I hate this sign, I don't like this sign, I love this sign. It's deeper than that. If you're truly going to try to understand relationships, you cannot boil it just down to someone's sun sign because someone did something to you in high school. Like, you know, and again, like I said before, I'm not going to go on a tangent because I do have a video about this, but you know, a lot of people will never tell you what they did. Everybody's like, I hate this sign. It's like, what did you do? No one ever tells that sign. Let them tell it. They hate they hate 5 signs. They'll list out 5 signs they hate. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. How do you have that much drama in your life? That's what I think. Like, sometimes ask people, like, how do you have that many people you have issues with? And again, sometimes it is the people, but sometimes people aren't reflective enough to recognize if it's actually them. And all that. 0 to 9. Physical body and energy is going to be manifested through the 0 to 9 degrees, or the earlier degrees if you're someone working with the 0 to 10. The middle one's the 10 to 19, or whatever is in the middle if you're using a different degree system, 11 to 20, whatever you're using. The middle is you've already in the thick of things, and so you figured it out. And so when there's the 10th to 19th degree is going to be more about figuring out, maneuvering, being able to mold, manipulate, or whatever your situation. By manipulate, I don't mean the you know, deceiving people kind. I mean manipulating in terms of, you're going to see when you look at the middle decans of each sign that what it does, it has more of an understanding of how it wants to use the energy. Now again, you can go more complex. You can say, oh, you're a Libra and you're a second decan Libra. Okay. And it's at the 14th degree, and you can interpret that if you wanted to. And then 20 to 29 or 21 to 30 is more of, you know, the end. So at the end, you're looking for purpose. You're looking for something new, right? Or not new, but you're looking to see something that has some type of meaning to it. And it could sometimes be new experiences, but it's not the newness of the 0 to 9, of the wonder and the curiosity of the 0 to 9. The 20 to 29 is more mature, so it's not looking and seeking for so much. It's looking for the meaning and true depth of things. And so that's what you'll see with that. they're there. So let's get started with Aries. So Aries is, so March 21st to March 31st is Mars. And so what you'll see is that's the Aries person, okay? That you'll see more of that impulse, that desire to take on what they feel and what they want, especially if we have that person that just came off that Pisces run, and also if they have Pisces in the chart too. And so this is where you'll get, now this is 0 to 9 degrees, or 0 to 10, the Aries person, the person who is more of that bold, I need to sense it out, I need to experience it. Sometimes won't always think before they act, but has more of that genuine, pure, going for it type of energy. Whereas the second decan, Aries, is the 10th to 19th degree, or the 11 to 20. And this is April 1st to April 10th, and it's ruled by the sun. And so this is the Aries person that maybe has more of that need to be that leader, to be seen, to have that shine, to be that entrepreneur. And so what we see in decans, we get to see the different archetypes of the sign. You see how like so many signs have different things under it, but then we get to see which decan actually kind of embodies that energy of Aries. And so the sun is more of that type of Aries. When you have that second decan energy, it is more of the one who does kind of, so the Mars one is more, I'm just going to do it. The sun one is more of that energy of attention and wanting to shine. And that's where sometimes you'll get more of the business leaders, the people who are prominent with this decan here. Now, the last one is Jupiter, 20 to 29, 21 to 20 to 29, or that 21 to 30. What you'll get here is you'll get the person who has more of that kind of, I'm the Aries, but I want to expand and express and help everyone, or I want everyone to understand what I have going on. This is the salesman. This is the person who kind of draws you in. This is the Aries that has more of that kind of more, because the Jupiter energies have the more Sag energy. So you're definitely going to get, with any type of Aries, you're going to get that opinionated type of person. But with Jupiter, you get more of the one that might be a little bit more about knowledge, more about study, more about experience in a purposeful way. Different than Mars, which is more an experimental, I'm just going to be, I'm evoked by what I want, I'm just going to go forth it type of energy. Now, Taurus. Okay, so Taurus at the 0 to 9 degree, the early degree, or April 20th to April 30th. As you can see, the decans are also broken down. The days of each decan is also 10. So the idea of 10 is in this philosophy here. 10. So Venus ruling Taurus, what it already rules is this is where you do get the Taurian, who is more, prefers a certain calm in their life. This is the Taurus that is a little bit more about leisure and creativity and relaxation. In the early degrees, so 0 to 9, 10 to, doing two systems is really getting you guys know what I mean. I said it in the beginning as well, what they mean, because it would be 0 to 10 if you're using the other one. But what I'm saying is that, like, this is the person. So you could be looking at your moon as well and maybe say, oh, my moon's at the 5th degree. So, this is more of the Taurus energy that is more concentrated in wanting to feel a sense of, calm. This is one that is not as, this is where you get the ones who are more about taste and refinement. Those are the types of Tauruses that you'll get there. It's more about that kind of very Venusian type of energy with that first decan, right? And where appearance might even be very important through Venus and that kind of, connection to what something aesthetically looks like, also through just simply wanting to attract others and things of that nature. Now, the second decan is ruled by Mercury. So this would be May 1st to May 10th. Okay, so you're getting Mercury here because now we're getting a Virgo vibe to this Taurus. So this 10th to 19th degree, right? Or 11 to 20. Sorry if I missaid it in the other one. So what that means is this is the Taurus person that is a little bit more strategic, methodical, and not strategic in the way of Saturn Decan one, but more in terms of this is the Taurus person who is more of that worker. That's why sometimes you'll get very different Taurus description. You'll be like, oh, well, they like to relax. They're not. Taurus doesn't like to get their hands dirty, or Taurus is the wants refinement. They want comfort. That is going to probably be that first decan Taurus. That is not as much about the tedious day-to-day things. It's more about the beauty and the sense and the refinement and of things. Whereas that second one, the second decan, is ruled by Mercury. And so you could be a person who's like, wait, but I relate more to this one. But you could, if you're a Taurus and you have your Mercury in Taurus, you could apply some of this degree work to it. You could, if you choose to. I'm not, I'm just saying what the decans are, but this is where you're going to get the more, worker Taurus, the more specific type of I need to get this done, and the resourceful type of Taurus that uses their mind to craft. They build things up really well. They're the master builders. Perhaps they call them master builder. It can definitely be more related to this decan energy here, where they're using their mind to then build around them. And again, by build, it doesn't have to literally mean build. It simply is using your mind and using your information systems in order to create something that is tangible and that we can see, which differs from that first one, where it's more about the beauty of things, the taste, what something is like. So these folks would be a lot better with their creativity, perhaps the first decan Tauruses. The last decan Tauruses, or the 20 to 29 ones, whatever way you're doing this. Also, May 11th to May 20th is sub-ruled by Saturn. And so obviously we know Venus rules all Tauruses, but with Saturn, it has to do with accomplishment, achievement. Okay, so here, this is going to be the Taurus person that has more of that I want to be seen, I want to be respected type of energy. So with this energy, you see more of the person who is a go-getter. They're always doing something. They're not worried as much about the creativity and the relaxation piece as the first decan Tauruses, perhaps. And there's more of this entrepreneurial energy. Now, again, both Saturn rules Capricorn as well. We know that. Well, Saturn rules Capricorn, co-ruler of Aquarius. Saturn moves kind of slow. And so can Taurus, because Taurus is about building the resources, storing things up. It's not about rushing to do anything. And because of that, this person might move to status slower. This person has patience, perhaps. This is going to be the more patient Taurus, the more Taurus that's going to be more, the Taurus that's going to be more, what do I want to say? Pleasant, or about other people and connecting with other people, is going to be that first decan one. Those are more the people. They might be a little bit more adventurous in some way than other Tauruses, because you also have them coming off the tail end of Aries. And if somebody's directly on that cusp, we know for some folks that is a big thing. Like if you're a 0-degree Taurus, you were about to be an Aries, basically, if you were born a few days before. And so that can be that influence there. Now, Gemini. All right, so the Gemini decan. Okay, so the first decan, all right, we have May 20, sorry, I'm going slow so I don't mess these dates up. May 21st to May 31st, that is the Mercury, right? So remember, Mercury, every decan is going to start with the planet that actually rules it, and it's going to give a different, an extra layer of that planet on that person. So this is the Gemini. Mercury, this is where you get your typical curious Geminis, your very inquisitive Geminis, you're more information-based, scholarly Geminis, especially when we look at the fact that they're coming off the tail end of Taurus. And so Taurus is more of that, again, like that energy of storing things up in order to preserve it, in order to have something. That has to do with finances as well. So then you could have, with an early degree Gemini, through the first decan being ruled by Mercury, there's more of that person who wants to earn through their mind, or they want to somehow go to school or keep going to school, right? We know that we all have to go to school, but at a certain point, some people stop. And so this might be the person who's like, no, I'm going to keep going, because they want those resources, especially if they are coming off the tail end of Taurus, right? So they're born at that cusp. They're born on 5/21. What does that mean? So it's the early Gemini energy, but it also has that kind of curious energy, more of that, this might be the one that is more in some ways, some of these guys can be more talkative about information. Now, when we move to the second decans, that's where we're going to get the Geminis that are more talkative about people, relationships. This is where you get different energies. And so when people stereotype, now Geminis are gossips. Well, sometimes it might depend specifically on that decan as well of which Gemini. Now, again, we do look at the whole chart because this is only one piece of it. But it's a great starting point for people who want to be able to sometimes we know something is true and we just need someone else to say it for us, because some of you are like into astrology but you're not fully into it yet, but you know that you're tired of people just talking about sun signs and stereotyping, and we know that there is definitely more to this. Now, yeah, the June 1st, June 10th Venus is Venus ruled. That's that 10 to 19. That's that middle bucket of Gemini decan. It's the middle. So with that means, again, partnership is important. These are the Geminis that sometimes they get the reputation like, oh, they're dating all over the place, or they like partnership. They're always with someone new. Now, that's not all Geminis, of course, but with this decan, that could be more pronounced because, again, they're ruled by Venus, just like their Libra counterpart is, right? One of the other air signs. So because of that, this gives the Gemini a little bit more of an appreciation for partnership as well. An understanding of communication, probably maybe even a better people person through this middle lens here, through this Gemini energy. Now, but here we'll have, and they can be creative with words and vision. So this is the Gemini person that might be more creative with putting things together that we see. Whereas the Gemini Mercury is maybe more of that information, that writing piece. Now, the last one at the later degree, 20 to 29, as I'm going for it, June 11th to June 20th is ruled by Uranus, because Uranus also rules Aquarius. And so with that, now again, if you're old school astrologer, you might say that it's Saturn, right? But modern, we say Uranus. So that gives a different level. This is the Gemini person that's kind of maybe unexpected. They're tricky. There's where you get that Gemini is the trickster from, perhaps. Definitely from that Mercury and Uranus decans. Definitely that's where that comes from. So you get the person who has interesting, strange ideas, and they have to communicate them. As mutable air, Gemini has got to communicate. It has to put stuff forward into the atmosphere so that you sense it and that you feel it. And so through that, what you're going to see is this is the person who might have odd ideas, but again, that could be innovative, because Uranus is not just about being weird. It's about innovation. It's about technology. It's about seeing something in a novel way in which you can now impact society and generations through Uranus energy. And so these are the Geminis that are more experimental. These kind of can be the ones that don't really stay put all that much. They have a lot of energy going on. I think that's where you're going to see probably a lot more of that, energy kind of come off. Now, could you say with certain decans, people might relate more to you based on that energy? It's possible. All right, let me pick back up where I left off. So Cancer. Okay, so the Cancer individual. Okay, so the Cancer individual, the first decan is ruled by the moon, just like Cancer is ruled by the moon. And so we have the June 21st to the June 30th, Cancer 0 to 9 degree. Again, I've already said before, look back at the early video, look at the notes in the description box of there are different ways you might sometimes see degrees spelled out for decans. I'm telling you the way I'm doing it, because it's the way I do it in my work, but there is the other way. So I like to give people the facts, and then you decide like what works for you. But the reason I do it that way is because, like I said, when you do a chart, you don't see 30 degrees there, it's 29. So anyway, some of you aren't even into degrees, you just want to know the decans. Cool. Moon. So this is the person, this is the real Cancer. I don't want to say the real Cancer, but this is the one who is really channeling that moon energy, that nurturing energy. The emotions are used to care for something or someone or nurture when we are dealing with the first decan Cancer person. This is the true source of that emotion, especially at the 0 to 9 degree. It's early energy. It's a little restless, especially if it's a person who's at that cusp, right? But it's bubbling up, and it's energy that has to be let out. And so this is where you're going to see the Cancer who's even maybe even really the Cancers that probably can be the best actor. Acting is really good for Cancer. Well, not all Cancers want to be actors or actresses, but they say Cancer is actually a sign that has a lot of actors and actresses because of their ability to evoke emotion, because they can maybe even evoke emotion on cue. Not everybody can do that. It's going to be Neptune Cancer, the third Decan Cancers, and the first Decan Cancers. Decan, I'm sorry, whatever, you know what I mean. It's going to be those guys that are probably the best at that. The moon, your ability to channel and get in touch with your emotion in order to portray something. Even if you don't want to be an actor or anything like that, it just presents that this is the more nurturing energy of Cancer. This is the more archetypal energy of Cancer with these signs here. Now, could it be a little bit unstable? It depends on the degree. There are degrees that are a little bit more stable, more unstable than others. And again, it depends. If someone just, is on the cusp of Gemini and Cancer, you have that mutable air. I need to express, I need to release. And then you have the Cancer energy. So it could relate to someone who is more emotionally communicative, for good or bad. Now, Pluto ruling the second decan. That's July 1st to July 11th. 10 to 19th degree, the middle degree for those of you who do the other way of degrees. But Pluto, transformative. This is the Cancer person who uses their emotions probably in a way more to transform. Now, transformation can be great, but you could be transforming those around you. The problem with that can be if it's used for good or not. That's anything with Pluto. Is it used for good or is it not, right? Everything in our charts has pros and cons to it. And so Pluto being that really heavy, it's intense, it is about this kind of rebirth of something. So we're taking something and we're turning it into something else, and we put it in the sign of Cancer. It can mean like this is a person who maybe is more easy. The Cancer is able to pick up and get back on. Doesn't stay stuck in their emotions as much because they know what they want. Now, for some folks, that could be good. For people, that could be destructive. Pluto can be destructive. It can be, I'm going to take everyone down with me. I'm going to use my power. So you would have to be really careful with this energy here, but it could be great for the type of person who's more transformative in nature. They don't get stuck in the emotions. They don't, the first decan is more maybe devoted, or that devoted emotionally to those in their life. And with this Pluto one, Pluto becomes more about control, depth, right? This is more of the depth. Again, anytime we're dealing with water energy, especially, all of this is the types of intuition you could be doing. So you might even have a Venus in Cancer, but look at the degree. What types of, so those of you who are into spirituality, what types? Because Pluto in Cancer, that's more of transformative magic, right? The moon is intuition, moon magic, moon rituals. Neptune is more go down the rabbit hole, right? Sense things, deal with spirits, or things of that nature. Deal with more of the healing practices. So that can be, depends on which bucket they're in. Now the Neptune 7-12, so July 12th to July 22nd, Neptune. So remember, when Neptune's dealing with illusion, it's dealing with illusion, but it's also dealing with, compassion and kindness. And it also can be dealing with not seeing reality. It could be dealing with, but creativity, because we create because we don't see what we want. True creatives create something no one has done before. You could be influenced by someone, but true creative people create something that's from their imagination. That's Neptune. These are the Cancers that might have that more intuitive bug. Sometimes you'll hear someone say, well, I just read this description about my sign, but it doesn't really fit me. That's because when we do sun sign astrology, we just bucket everything together because we have to have a starting point. And then once you start breaking this down, you might see that you do relate in a different way. And so Neptune, Cancer person. Now, this is the person that has to be careful because they can't let their emotions guide them all the way, because Neptune's energy is going to be really positive. But again, it can lead to sometimes not seeing things all the way through, not dealing with reality, not facing reality, evading escapism when emotions get too tough. And so though I think that Neptune energy is great for the person who really is a compassionate person, who's kind, who can get in touch with their spiritual side, who can be inspired by life, who might need to be around life. This is the water sign. Neptune's deal is, Neptune rules Pisces, fishes, the fish. Fishes is not a word, but water. So this is a calming, this person needs to be in a calming environment, perhaps, where they need to live or where they need to be, but they do have to watch out for the reality thing. Now, Leo. Okay, so Leo, the first decan, of course, is going to be ruled by the sun because that's the ruler of that sign. We have July 23rd to August 1st, 0 to 9 degrees. So the Leo sun person is, that's the more, now here's where we can see some more of that kind of I want to say child fun type of energy. It's kind of like the middle decan Aries person. That's where we're going to see the jovial. It's not as much. They're learning the energy. And so when you're learning Leo energy as a Leo in an early degree, it could sometimes lead to sometimes not truly understanding your own influence or power. And so what that can sometimes mean is you look at it and you're like, wait, this person is, doing too much, or they're trying to show themselves too much, and it's because they're learning that energy. There is a lot of confidence through this here, but the sun is just trying to shine a light. It's not trying to control anything. It just shines a light on itself. So there's a type of Leo that you might see here. They like to be prominent. They like to be seen. They like to be given acknowledgement and things of that nature, right? This is where you're going to see more of that Leo archetype. Now, the Leo archetype that is more of the expansive, generous type we're going to get when we get from August 2nd to August 12th. Now, that is where we're going to get more of that expansive, I want to spread my wealth, or I want to show everybody what I have. Not in a way to impress, but Jupiter is about, here's what I have, you can have it too. You're going to get more of that type of energy. This is the person who wants to share. This might be the person who now also could have a larger than life ego. We have to be careful because we could see something where you also have to look at the energy in the person's chart. So what if this Leo person has Jupiter in Leo in their Leo? So the sun is conjunct Leo, especially the sun is conjunct Jupiter in this person's chart, especially if it's in close degrees of each other. That could be an expansive ego. What if it's in the 5th house? That's an expansive ego. And so though Jupiter can be generous and though Jupiter can, but it's also going to be like a risk-taking type of person who might sometimes take too much a risk, be too confident. Whereas the sun, the first decan might be a little bit more, they stay in their lane. They're confident, but in themselves. They're not necessarily going outside of what they feel themselves to be. Whereas Jupiter is like, I can do it. I can take on anything. And it could be good. That could be a great energy to have, but it can have pitfalls. Now, Mars is going to be the last decan. So the last decan is sub-ruled by Mars. All of Leo is ruled by the sun. We know that. August 13th to August 22nd. So that's the 20 to 29th degree or the late degrees. Okay. So that's about, obviously that shift there is now we see the Leo who wants more control, who wants power, who might be a good leader among others, who is willing to get their hands dirty. Right? That first decan Leo might not be, but that last decan Leo is more of the enterprise. Doesn't mean bad. I know plenty of Leos within this bucket. They're more about, they can command something. They know how to rally the troops up. They know how to use their leadership in a way that shows they are competent. And thing about Mars is now expression of what you are capable of. It is your action. The sun is who you are. But when Mars comes out, we're not just looking at your personality, we're looking at what you're doing. And so there you can see a lot of that leadership is funneled through that decan, sometimes in more of a concentrated way because it's ruled by Mars. And so that type of Leo has a different level of competition, of athleticism, maybe even when we're dealing with that last decan Leo. Now, Virgo. So Virgo, okay, so what I'll do is if any of y'all got to this, guess what decan Virgo I am. Guess. Just guess. Somebody. All right, so this Virgo is, the first decan Virgo is August 23rd to September 1st. Mercury. So this is the Mercury Virgo. This is the Virgo that overthinks, that overanalyzes. This is the Virgo that is very task-driven, has a probably good memory. This is the Virgo that might have more of that nervous Virgo energy that we know of. It's probably more manifested through this decan Virgo, more of that overthinking, analyzing, but also able to see the finite pieces. Already ruled by Mercury, now having Mercury as an extra layer is the person that's able to fit the puzzle pieces together in a way in which you can dump a whole puzzle piece. Dump it all out. Dump all the pieces out, and that's not a freaking out type of thing. Now, Mercury does want us to act and move, so this is going to be Virgo's like, okay, first I need to do this, first I need to do that, let me think of this, let me figure this out. That is that energy of the first decan Virgo, of more of that analysis of like, how do I look at the little small things? I need to think everything out in a very practical manner, but I need to process and analyze all of this. That is the Virgo's Virgo. Now, the second decan is September 2nd to September 12th, sub-ruled by Saturn, 10th to 19th degree. We have that middle. That is where we have Virgos who are more about the bigger picture. The process now has to become something that's achievable. So that's why we, a lot of people are like, Virgo nitpicks and all that. It's like, well, you could see that in Virgo energy, but the one that's more of a nitpicker, you might see more in the first deck in Virgo. Now, again, it all depends on the rest of the chart, because you could have a person who is a third deck in Virgo, but their Mercury's in Virgo. So already they're going to be that. And again, it depends on how someone is doing something. Is it nitpicking, or is it lifting up something that you don't see? A lot of times, none of us like for people to tell us something that isn't favorable, but it might help a situation, right? Hey, did you notice that? Da, 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 da. Like, and that's probably what. Now, again, I think with Virgo, it depends on how the Virgo says it. There's definitely ways to tell people how to notice something without being disrespectful, without being annoying about it, for sure. But with the second one, Saturn here, you probably get more of a serious one. You might get more of a serious Virgo. Whereas I feel like the first and third decan are, especially the third, is more social. The other one is just more of, they're going to tell you what they think, get them in that mode, get them in that conversation. The Saturn one is focused. They know what they're looking for. They know what they want. But this is the Virgo about achievement and goals. So they're not stressing over the small details. This is I'm going to make this work, and I now have analyzed this, and I'm going to take this to show you guys what I've come up with. So Saturn there, Virgo is a worker in general, but with Saturn, it's now more about, they can even maybe be more of the authority, the leads. Those are the Virgos that might be more of the leaders of something in that middle bucket, because they are co-ruled by Saturn. So it's a different level of work, where Saturn is like, I'm father time, or I'm the mature one here. I know what to do. So that is where you're going to get more of that Virgo energy that thinks they know what to do. They want to do something in a manner that's going to get something to the point. The first decan is more of the process that they are internally going through. The last decan is September 13th to September 22nd, and it is sub-ruled by Venus. This is where you're definitely going to get more of that social Virgo. And I know people are like, the word social and Virgo, how does that even come in the same sentence? Well, first of all, if this Virgo was born on September 22nd, that's a day before Libra. Why wouldn't they, right? Like, when we look at things more in a complex way, we're able to see, oh, that is possible. And so with that, this is the Virgo. Now, this Virgo is still going to want to connect to people through analysis, through words. But they have more of they need to connect to people. This is more of the Virgo that's still going to carry that Virgo energy, but at the event, or at the social event, they're going to go talk to people. They're going to go up and talk to people. They might have more of that charm. Some Virgos can have more, to me, sarcastic humor and that kind of dry humor, it doesn't bother me as long as the person isn't directing it to me. Like, I get people like that, like the sarcastic people that you're like, you meet and you're like at an event, neither one of you want to be there, and you're both making snarky remarks. Like, I get, like, I get that humor, I get that energy, as long as it's not mean-spirited, right? But that Venus Virgo has a different way with words. They might be really good with the way in which they communicate the words. They might be really good with the way in which they could be. This is where you might get even more that entertainer Virgo. Once you get there, so it's not enough to say that's an August Virgo, that's a September Virgo. You have to look at the decans. You have to look at the decans to really see what it's really going to encompass, right? And again, everything has variances. Okay, you could certainly be like, wait, but that Virgo, but I'm a Virgo and that doesn't describe me. And well, first of all, a lot of times it's not that we're wrong about who we are. We're not wrong about who we are, but there could be things about you that you don't see that other people do see when they're interacting with you. And also, you have to look at your whole chart, because if there's a square to your sun or any negative aspects or challenging aspects, yes, that could throw the whole thing off, right? So this is part one of this video, where we're just addressing Aries through Virgo. All right. Thank you for watching. Please let me know your decan below. And again, if you can, guess what decan Virgo I am. All right. So we're going to talk about Libra. Okay. So the first decan of Libra, we're dealing with energy that is related to Venus. So Venus already rules Libra. So these individuals have a heightened sense of this need for partnership, harmony. These are where you might get more of the more romantic, aesthetically prone Libras who really need or feel that sense of wanting to do things together. So again, what I said in the other sign, a lot of the the traits we assign to certain signs actually can be broken down by Decan. Not that all Libras do this. Now, all Libras are trying to harmonize, collaborate in some way. There's some sense of trying to bring something together when we're dealing with Libra energy, right? And so Venus being this double influence here is you will get maybe the Libras who are more on that visual side, either in their appearance or what they like to do or like how they like to present themselves, because Venus is linked to this idea of beauty, the aesthetics, or what it is that we want to see. And so that's more pronounced usually in the early Decan Libra individuals, right? Sometimes they are more of the ones that, can be prone to not wanting to, kind of like these type of folks can like work smarter, not harder type of people, right? They are about leisure, relaxation. Even some of them might get into fields that deal with leisure, relaxation, make people feel good about where they are. Is definitely a Libra thing in general, but definitely when we add that layer to the Decan. Now, secondly, the second Decan, 10 to 19 degrees, the middle months, October 3rd to October 13th. Uranus is the ruler here, the sub-ruler. Now, what's interesting about that, to be honest, is the fact that, let me just get a better angle here. What's interesting here is that Uranus is very different than what we think of Libra being, but this is the ones that are more of that contrarian type. The Libras who are the ones that, you might say, oh, there's something different about them, or they have a different aesthetic, a different thing. So Venus is trying to unite and relate. So your first Decan one is trying to relate. Uranus is trying to experiment, almost try different things to see who comes and who attaches to them. And so through this regard, Uranus is a very interesting aspect to Libra, the second Decan, because we're dealing with energy here where remember the 10 to 19 degree, the middle degrees, they're trying to do something with it in a way in which they're trying to mold, manipulate, or change, or do something. So you think of Uranus as like innovation, innovative energy. These Libras in this middle bucket are more, there's something innovative there. There's again already Libras a cardinal energy. So these could be the ones who are the first to do something, the first to figure something out. If you're a Libra that's always felt a little different, or you're a Libra moon and you're like, but I always felt a little bit different. I yearn for this relation, but at the same time I yearn for my individuality at the same time. That might be the influence of the Decan. Now, the third Decan, October 14th to October 22nd in 20 to 29 degrees, that last set of degrees, Mercury. This is where you get more, a lot of times people will talk about Libra, the gift of the gab, or Libra is associated in some way to diplomacy, to law, to arguing for certain things, for using their mind. That analytical approach is very pronounced in these last Decan Libras. The ability to sway with words, but also to think in that very bilateral way that Libra is known for in general, but you get more of that maybe bookwormy Libra, that more of that thinking Libra, in the sense of obtaining information and using it in order to make decisions, whereas the Uranus, the second house one, is more so having sporadic or different thoughts in which they're trying to find someone who kind of agrees with that. You're trying to find someone who understands you, because Libra is still a sign that is dealing with this need to unionize, to partner with, either whether it's a think partner, a relationship, a business partner, whatever the case may be. Scorpio, the first Decan Scorpios are ruled by Pluto. That's October 23rd to November 1st. Now, you could say, well, wait, Mars and Pluto both rule Scorpio. And you definitely will have people who follow traditional astrology that will say that's Mars. So just want to put that out there, depending on what you choose to use. 0 to 9 degrees, or that first set of degrees, it's trying to really obtain something, trying to really define something in a way in which it is able to be magnified in a way to understand it at a deeper level. So these are the Scorpios that kind of have that more mysterious edge to them. No, not all Scorpios are mysterious, but some of the ones that have that early energy to them They're always trying to change, evolve. These are the ones that you could be like, oh, they're really intense. You know, there's a lot of intensity there. It's not that all Scorpios are like that. It's simply that sometimes this Decan energy, especially at the 0 to 9th degree, which is trying to grab a hold of something and trying to experience it and understand it in a way in which you can start to create, right? When we think of the early degrees, it's new, it's creation in some way. And if we think of Pluto in that regard, that's what you're going to get with this individual. Now, the second decan is ruled by Neptune. So these are the November 2nd to November 11th Scorpios. The middle degrees, 10 to 19. So Neptune, as we said before, now Neptune's difference is Neptune wants to influence in a gentle, subtle way. So this is where you can get the Scorpio person who is more of that healer type, who wants to take kind of their inner power and apply it to something beyond themselves. Neptune can be that great shapeshifter energy. And when we put that in Scorpio, what we get more of a milder energy where this person maybe has a heightened sense of connectivity to others, right? It becomes less about, well, I need to necessarily be this strong individual and I need to kind of not have my guard down. And it becomes more of this open approach. Now, we would have to look at the whole chart because you could have a situation where, okay, that sun is in a degree that does not work well with the chart. That sun, okay, if Neptune's a focus of the chart because the decan, what if Neptune is square something? What if the sun squares Neptune? What's going to happen is there's going to be a theme around that in that individual, regardless of whether Neptune is pronounced in a positive or negative way. You also could have people who you're not quite sure what they are doing. They're not really transparent. This is definitely where you can get more of the sneaky side of a Scorpio. You can get more of that uncertainty, of that illusion of like, well, you know, because Scorpio knows how to obtain and get what it wants, but when we put another influence on it, it can be more of that. They're going to get what they want, but it's not always a transparent way. Or they can be deceptive. There can be a little bit of deception and manipulation in order to get to that point. Though we think that is Pluto. Pluto is about transformation. And yes, Pluto can be about taking power. But Neptune can be about cloaking something, not really being transparent, not really having the reality of it. But it can be a beautiful energy for people who can use it in a way to reach out to others. And if you are more, sometimes people just feel like, you know, I don't want to be vulnerable, but I want to give to other people because I do understand emotions. And so that's what you'll get with that. Now, the last one, the November 12th, November 21st ones, the moon. So that is the last decan. So these Scorpios are way more in tune with their own emotions in some way. Now, again, it will depend on other aspects, but if the sub-ruler is the moon, and we already know that Scorpio is ruled by Pluto and Mars, this becomes a person who has more of an inner understanding and drive of what they truly want. And so it takes away from, I need power, and it sensitizes the Scorpio to being true to self. It sensitizes the Scorpio to really have more of an inner dialogue with themselves, as opposed to Mars and Pluto, which is interacting in some way with these outside forces, right? So it's less about power. It's less about consuming. It's not about cloaking anything when we have this third decan. And remember, the last degrees are more of that soul-searching degree. So you might see more of those ones who are more, you know, in tune with themselves in some manner, especially once people mature. You know, you're going to likely see that. Now, Sagittarius is at the 0 to 9th degree. We're dealing now. Sag is already a very independent spirit, but wants to use that to influence others and has that sense of truth and thought. And so Sagittarius at the first decan is ruled by Jupiter, which already rules Sagittarius. And so these are the individuals November 22nd to December 1st, kind of represent that kind of pure, authentic Sagittarian energy. Now, the thing with Sagittarius energy is sometimes, remember, Jupiter wants to spread and it wants to go as far as it can. So it's best for these people to find something that they stick to that's really allows for that enthusiasm and that sense of them to really work with their purpose. Now, by purpose, I mean, it's whatever that Sagittarius person has defined as that's what excites them. That's what they like. That's what they want to chase. The importance here would be also looking more at the, you know, the other aspects as well, because remember, it's Jupiter is I want to give to you. I'm going to show you what I have. This is great. And again, the sign is going to show more of that. So we're not talking about Jupiter through the signs, but we're talking about this Decan and this energy of this Sag person who's going to be more of that open, risk taker type, or I like this, I'm going to try it type, right? Now, once we go to Mars, we see the Sagittarius who's taking that. Now, the Mars in the second decan, that's 10 to 19, the middle one, that is December 2nd to December 11th. Mars is seeking to take and show their power. This is the Sagittarius who might be a little bit more direct in what they want from the world and really seizing and showing their power. Now, that'll be very different than Jupiter, where Jupiter can be a bit much, it can be exaggerative, but with Mars, it's here's what I have. I want to have this certain type of response. This is, I'm seizing the day. Now, the thing about Mars and Sagittarius, or that being an influence, these are the Sagittarius people that you see who may be the types that are going to bat for someone, are going to do something to show how strong they are. I don't mean that in an overpowering way. You can have a person who does a lot for others, or you can have a person who's very prominent, and that's because they have this extra emphasis of Mars kind of as that sub-ruler. And Mars is about action. It's not about wisdom like Jupiter. It's not about the experience. Mars is, I have these abilities. I am powerful, or I have this mode of doing something. Let me show you how I do it. That's the type of you're going to get there with that Sagittarius energy. So they're not seeking to unite as much as you would see with maybe the first or third. Now, the third is that last one, that December 12th to December 21st. The sun rules this decan. And so here we're talking about shedding the light. This is the more Sag. Again, the last degrees are more attached to the soul purpose, the spirit in a way. So the last degree of that, the sun is more so, I want to shed light. So that's what Sagittarius is about. But when we have the sun there, this person is like, they have prominence. This could be more the teacher. Remember, Jupiter could be the person who has the experience, the knowledge, and they're trying to really just spread this in some way, and more of that awareness piece. But when the sun, if we have Sagittarius that is sub-ruled by the sun, we're dealing more with the person that can be prominent in that position. That could be more of the teacher, the philosopher, the person that you go to who has kind of like this wisdom. So do you see how all the archetypes of the signs are really derived from the differences, slight differences in the decans? That does not mean that you can't have a person who has those traits I just said in their decans in the second. This is just a different school of thought that some people like. You can take it, you can leave it. Capricorn, we're dealing with the December 22nd to December 31st, and Saturn, right? So Saturn's a ruler, so Saturn is the sub-ruler as well, since it's the first decan. It's that new raw energy. And so here, Capricorn only knows to try to achieve. Capricorn knows to follow the structure, follow how something is. These are the Capricorns that have more of that authoritative energy because there's this kind of right way to do something. It's a procedure. We've always done it that way. This is how we're going to do it. And it doesn't always mean that somebody is trying to impose on you. It's simply that they're really good at knowing what the system is. If something goes down, and especially if they're in their zone. It's not that Capricorn is going to be the world is going to want to do everything in the world. It's that they are going to be good at whatever function it is that they provide in any situation or role. And so this is where you get more of the serious type of Capricorn individual. This could be the one that has some sort of authority to them, even in the way they present themselves and the way that they look. Especially if you're thinking of a Capricorn ascendant person, sometimes you might not be sure how to read them until you actually get to know them, see them, and see how they engage in all those different things. Now, the Capricorn, the second decan, we're dealing with, let's see, we're here. November. I'm sorry, some of these dates, man. I'm just trying to look at my handwriting. January 1st to January 10th, Venus, 10 to 19th degree. Okay, so here you have the Capricorns who have more of a kind of people energy. They're good managers of people. I think that Capricorn is good manager of people in general in terms of getting the work done. Capricorn is good at delegating. Capricorn is good at knowing who's going to perform what function. They're really good at, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, and I'll do this. But with Venus, these are more the people person Capricorn. And again, you could relate to this even if you're a Capricorn first decan, but maybe you are a Capricorn moon, I don't know, and it's in the first house or something. So it's prominent, it's more visible for how you interact with people, your emotions more. So you might even see that if it's at a certain degree, you might relate more to this decan if you relate more to your moon and your moon's in Capricorn. But, you know, in general, these are the Capricorns that can kind of get people along for the ride. They even might be the kind who are specifically really into partnerships that require growth and money. Now, the Saturn, the first decan, might do it as well because they're like, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to have a family. You're supposed to do this. Whereas the second decan, Venus, it's more of, I want something of value. It adds a little Taurian energy to the Capricorn person. Now, the last one is, the last decan of Capricorn is 20 to 29th degree. We are dealing with January 11th to January 19th, and we are dealing with Mercury. All right, so this is the Capricorn who kind of can fit things together in a more succinct way. This is the Capricorn that's not really worrying about enterprise as much, or not maybe worrying about, you know, partnership as much as really you have the thinkers. You have the ones who are more like, no, let me think about how this is going to be successful. Let me use that. So again, that's got a Mercury, that Virgoan energy, because we're dealing with earth signs. And so with that Capricorn person, they're going to have more of a way of communication, might be a little bit more communicative directly, maybe really good with information and not just direction, such as the Saturn one. And you know, it's not really about the people person, also the second decan, but these Capricorns have more of an interest, maybe even in information. A little bit more mutable than others because you're dealing with Mercury energy, and with Mercury energy, you have to get new information. You're not just, you're not just relying on what you already have done. You're getting a new source of information in that way. Now, again, there's pros and cons to every planet, every sign, because Saturn, when you have a blueprint, you already know what to do. You don't have to, let me think about it, let me research it. So there's pros and cons. Now, Aquarius, Uranus rules it, modern ruler. Uranus is also the sub-ruler. So this is the person that January 20th to January 29th person, this is where you're going to get the really ones into conspiracy theories, probably the ones who are really into just, this is more of the rebel kind. They're going to rebel against something. And it depends on what it is. For some, it could be conventional relationships. For some, it's society's expectation of them. For some, it's, I don't want to follow my family's footsteps, right? There's so many different ways. But this is where you're going to get more of the real rebel person who really is like, no, we're going to overhaul that. Or no, we're going to change that. Or no, I don't agree with that. I'm the, you know, just like I said, the Libra decan, that second decan can be more that contrarian person who's like, you know, throwing a wrench in the situation. But sometimes we need that. A lot of times people want to just keep going, but sometimes you have to be innovative in order to see what we're missing. And, you know, so it's, you know, this is the person that can't be contained. They need to be able to use their differences in how they view things in order to bring them to us and say, hey, I've thought about this. This is a new idea. What do you think about this? Sometimes it can be harder for them to relate to others, or they keep it, you know, it's harder because it's not the same as the last decan, which is Venus ruled. Does not mean these people don't have tons and tons of people that they're around, but it just means like sometimes this could be the one that they kind of rub people a certain way, depending on how they choose to, again, looking at the whole chart, you know, but could be very innovative in some way. She can use it in that regard. Now, the January 30th, February 8th, Aquariuses, is they're subruled by Mercury. So this is a middle one. Remember what I said, the middle degrees, the 10 to 19, or the 11 to 20, depending on how you're doing. Either way, the middle, look at how those are more trying to adapt something. They're trying to do something a little bit different. The thinking about it, or they're trying to figure something out. In the first part is the kind of, I already kind of know, right? And the last ones are the soul. It slows down a little bit more, and it becomes more about, you know, the process of understanding life, or the process of doing something in a deeper, to a deeper extent. Now, and you see how that looks very nuanced depending on the sign, okay? Now, Mercury means these individuals are really good communicators. So whereas the first one could be a genius, the first Aquarius decan might be that mad scientist, genius person who figures something out. But the middle decan has better communication skills, probably does a little bit better in school. Right? They're a thinker. They like to look things up. They're a researcher. They are more in tune with using their information to navigate the world. And Aquarius can be really good and really quick at thinking. In that middle bucket, Aquarius is great at thinking on the fly, coming up with things that are actually successful, because we have to understand Aquarius is subruled as a sign, as a whole sign, by Saturn. Saturn's about goals. Okay, and so that's what you'll get with the second decan Aquarius. The third decan Aquarius, February 9th to February 18th, Venus. And so these are the Aquariuses that might want to reach out more to others. Remember, you do have Aquariuses it's not about, oh, I'm so different, I don't want to be around anyone. They're people that find people like them, and they want that partnership, and they want those friendships. So a lot of times people say, oh, Aquarius is the friendship one. But you have to look at the decan, because Venus, the third decan Aquarius, I think even the second as well, because of that communication piece. But Venus is that connectivity. It is that harmony. Now, even though Aquarius is that fixed air sign, with this is the person who is more social. This Aquarius is not the one like, oh, I'm just going to go off to my own and come up with these unique and different ideas. This is the one who is more so using their ideas to forge relationships among people who have similar views in some way. Now, lastly, we're going to go with Pisces. So Pisces, ruled by Neptune. We know the old school ruler, or some people still believe the traditional ruler is Jupiter. But with Pisces, we're dealing with 0 to 9 degree, or we're dealing with the early degrees, 0 to 10. Regardless, we're dealing with the early energy. So this, February 19th to February 29th, this is the energy of the most. This is the really in their imagination type of Pisces. This is really in their imagination. They're really in their zone. Don't disturb them. They know what they want. They can be in their own world. And sometimes there can be an issue with seeing reality in a way that is beneficial to them. But when it's a well-aspected sun, when the person has other positive attributes to being creative and doing it in a way that makes sense, it can work really well for these individuals. The moon is the second decan for Pisces. That's March 1st to March 10th. These individuals, 10 to 19. The middle, remember the middle. So this is the Pisces that's trying to go more with what they feel and sense. This is the Pisces that has more of that understanding and awareness of using their emotions in a way. So the thing about emotions and water signs is it's not the same. Sensing and emotions are not the same thing. I can sense something from someone. I can sense it. But the emotions is what you truly feel, and that's a difference. And so with this moon, the Pisces feels. They're more in tune with, I want to do this. I don't want to do that. That doesn't make me comfortable. That makes me comfortable. So that's where you're going to get the energy of the person who's like not with it. They're not with it. They're not with it. They're not going to do it. Okay. So that's something just to keep in mind about how that energy shows up. It is very, it could be very, this can be more of that changing moods. You're not really sure what you're going to get type of energy with how they feel. Oh, they're not feeling good today. Oh, they're upset today. You can get that more with this, but they're more in touch with their own sense, their own feelings, their own energy. So that's what you're going to get typically with these energies here. They are more in tune with self and maybe not as much with everybody else in the world. How you get that compassionate energy. You get more of that typical compassionate healing, Neptune, even Pluto. While the moon can be a caring energy, a nurturing energy, we can definitely get that through the moon and wanting to take care of you. When we think of actually transforming your life, that's Pluto. When we think of actually tending to what you spiritually need and tending to compassion and people, Neptune is everybody, compassion for everybody. The moon is people that you are directly connected to. Now, lastly, we're going to do March 11th through March 20th. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing because I have a bunch of numbers on here. That's the last decan, Pluto. Or traditional texts will say Mars is the ruler. Either way, Pluto and Mars, different planets, very Very obvious energy though. Now different things. Pluto is internally, that kind of strength, internally trying to create change. Mars is I'm here, look at what I already have. Pluto is I'm going to create something out of this. And so this person, this is the Pisces that has more of that gusto, perhaps. They are more about evolving and making something into a different experience for themselves and potentially others, especially if this person has Sun in Pisces, maybe at the 21st degree in the 8th house. This person is about evolving. They're about taking their sensitivity, but how do you turn it into something profitable or something that is actually going to elevate them in some way? So this is not the one who's going to wallow as much, right? Or they will not wallow for much long because that sub-ruler of Pluto is impacting them. Now, again, once you know that you are impacted in some way by these sub-rulers, you then need to look at your chart and see the relationship you have to that planet. Because I can be describing something. This is a general video. And you could be like, oh, this is great. That's amazing. And I want you to say if you like it. But understand we have to look at the condition of the planet in your chart. Because if you have, if your sub-ruler is Neptune, but you have 5 squares to Neptune, we have to look and unpack that. So that was it. If you're interested, I mean, in any other Decan videos, I might be able to do some more. And again, this is a technique. It is ancient. This is not new. And again, you can apply it to the ascendant. I've seen people apply it to the moon. Use it the way that you need to use it, but I just wanted to break down the fact that we are different, right? And our sun sign is just the start, and then we got to look at all the other pieces that make us who we are.